Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. Now I've got my second cup of coffee. So here we go. Part 4, guys. Like I say, I hope you're learning something from this. I hope this is somewhat entertaining and informative. Infotainment, as it has once been called. So at least it's not they usually call infotainment like, geez, I can't think words now. That's not good when you're doing this. Infomercials. They call it infotainment. No, this is way better. So part 4. So, we've gone from the early stages of the military-industrial complex to needing oil to puppet regimes in the Middle East. And a lot of other side, I went on a lot of tributaries, but I hope you learned some stuff. This is exciting for me. Like I said, my true calling would have been a history teacher, but life gets in the way. I still get to work with kids. And so, just try to enjoy your life as it comes to you. So, here we are, part 4. I mentioned Eisenhower and his pretty much neutral stance on Israel and versus Egypt. We have wars with Egypt and Israel going on in 1967, 1973. One of those wars, I believe the 67 war, is where Israel invented the preemptive strike because Egypt is right across the Red Sea from Israel, and Egypt had massed a bunch of planes and tanks and maybe even troops on the border. Foggy on the exact details of it, but Israel's like, oh, they're getting ready. We'll just take them out, and that's what they did. That's when the term preemptive strike was invented in terms of warfare. So, and then I've also mentioned, all the puppet regimes and the very fishy, not great things we've done throughout this world in terms in the name of getting oil for not only our machine, but also Israel's machine and other allies we have around the world. I was going to talk about Nixon, really. The reason I brought it is good to know presidential policy towards the Middle East. We're pretty much neutral until Nixon came into office in 1968, 69 technically. I believe Lyndon Johnson was the president who was the president before Nixon had. I don't recall him being super active in that, even though it's like the wars kind of surrounded him. One was in 67. I don't think the United States was instrumental in that war. And then 73, Nixon really this is where we started taking sides with Israel. But a few years later, when Jimmy Carter's elected in 1976, he actually brokers peace with Anwar Sadat from Egypt, Menachem Begin from Israel, and there's a famous Camp David Accords. Things look like they may be getting on a peaceful path, but in this, all that's lost is Palestine, and how Palestine doesn't have a state, right? These people and this is where we start getting into today's stuff. There's still a lot of background in the 90s and the early 2000s, 9/11 I could throw in. I could talk about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the second war in Iraq that was completely unnecessary. The war in Afghanistan, in my opinion, was unnecessary. However, here we are, right? An irony and a problem I have with the current state of the attitude towards Palestine, especially with Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been a hawk. If you watch his history, he led the country back in the 90s, I believe. He's been influential in Israel politics and policy for a very long time, 30, 40, 50 years. And he's very hawkish. And the irony I see, and I don't understand like I say, I'm not in Israel. There are a lot of liberals in Israel who are like not down with this war. They're not happy that missiles are getting lobbed at them from time to time by Hamas, but they're also not down with this war. Because here's the irony. Why was Israel created, right? Israel was created in 1948, a few years after World War II ended, to give the Jewish people a state to live, their own country, so we could avoid things like the Holocaust and other forms of discrimination that have gone on against the Jews since the beginning of time, right? Great. However, is the irony not lost on people, Jews all over the world, that say, I stand with Israel? Eventually, you can't. Or you can, but it looks really bad. Because every time Hamas kills like 10 Israelis, the Israelis come and kill like 1,000 Palestinians. And that's not a joke. Look at the numbers if you don't believe me. Especially lately, women, children, non-military people getting killed a lot. And so if you give Palestine a state, and by the way, Netanyahu is like, nope, it's all ours now. West Bank, Gaza, settlements, it's all ours. And if you understand the maps and you get to know the country itself, you understand these are important places. The Palestinians need a place to live, just like the Jews did, just like the Israelis do, right? So there's a huge irony there when you, and there are people that still remember the Holocaust. They were children when it happened, and there are probably many, many Holocaust survivors that live in Israel today. The irony of we were facing extermination as a people. Now we're for exterminating the Palestinians. Honestly, a lot of people, Netanyahu included, and all his supporters, want them eradicated. They talk about them in dehumanizing terms. And here's the thing. Here's another irony that I find. If you take Palestine, if you make a country for the Palestinians, legitimize the country, then you can hold them to standards that they can't be held to right now. If they have their military, if they have a thriving economy, if they have all the things that make a country a good country, once they lob missiles into Israel, it's an act of war. It's not an act of terrorism, right? And that's a big deal. Beyond that, what's an act of war now has gotten very, very muddy ever since 2001 when we decided to not or even 91 really. A lot of times we've gone into places, and whether it's Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, wherever we've just done some of that recently, right? 3 American servicemen were killed by, I believe, an Iranian missile attack, some sort of attack. What did we do? We hit 85 targets. We're just like Israel. It's like, you kill 3 of ours, we're going to kill thousands of yours. And that's the problem, is if we could kind of be mature, and we had a chance to do this in 2001. I know I'm a pacifist, but I was like, you know what? What ended up happening when we went to war with Afghanistan? By the way, none of the 19 guys that flew those planes into those buildings and one field in Pennsylvania, those 4 planes, none of them were Afghani. Not one. Mostly Saudis and other guys from other countries, Middle Eastern countries. None were Afghani. Why are we punishing Afghanistan? Because they trained there? That's insane. It's literally an insane thing to do. And then we open that to the meat grinder. How many thousands of our boys did we lose in that meat grinder? The IED side road mines and bombs, and yeah, we went in there because they didn't want us there. When we left, it sucked too. That is, I mean, I could get all into Afghanistan. I might do a 2-parter on that because Afghanistan is fascinating. By the way, I'm going to just throw this out there. If you want to get a good glimpse of what Afghan life was for a guy like my age, it's called Confessions of a Mullah Warrior by Masood Farivar. Great book. I'll try to put a link on it. Hopefully I'll remember to put a link on it to this video because it's a great book. I'm going through my second reading of it, and I think I mentioned it in a video about a month ago. But this is a typical life of a typical guy, not super typical, but a lot of typicalities that mirror, or not reflect, but just shine a light on what it's like to be a Muslim in the Middle East. So, sorry, once again, tangent. So there's a real problem with not giving Palestine statehood or nation state status, or it's the problem. And by the way, look, one day when you want to look at the controversy and why the world is at odds with us in Palestine, or us in Israel, look at some of the UN votes. UN votes have been like 180 to 2, literally, on, what should Israel do about this problem in Palestine? The whole world is saying, hold off. You can defend yourselves, but you can't just go in and just flatten a bunch of Palestinians, including women and children, because you got attacked. Israel, along with the United States support, has been breaking UN resolutions since the beginning of the country back in 1948. You can look it up. 2 of the more famous ones, I don't remember the technicalities of them, were UN Resolution 248 and 252, where it was basically anti-settlement type of things, because Israel had their country, we had the borders made, and then they're like, no, we're gonna expand. It's a problem. So there's a little bit of that. I know, once again, I went off on tangents. I don't know if I should end it at part 4. Maybe go a little more into some of the inner politics of Israel, which I'm not an expert on. But there's a big part of the problem right now, is you have a country that's not a country, that is defending itself and sometimes attacking another country. What do? I mean, like I said earlier, the, the definition of war has been muddied thanks to us and Israel doing things like preemptive strikes, doing things like not declaring war and just saying, oh, well, this is a skirmish, and also doing things that are horrific, like hiring mercenaries, like Blackwater. And you remember those horrific assholes? The Wagner group right now in Russia. Horrible. They do horrible things because they're mercenaries and not technically representing a country or a fighting force. They're a privately funded organization, so they can do whatever the fuck they want. And it's horrific what these mercenaries are doing to people, civilians, in the name of fighting a war and getting paid for it. It's really awful. So there we go. I think I'll just end it at 4. And thank you guys for so much for listening. It's been a lot. If you want to get in a Q&A in the comments, I'd love to get information from you and share information back. And I will put a link to the book, or at least the title of the book and the author of the book I mentioned. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you all. Hope you're having a happy Sunday like I am. I'm high on coffee. I hope you're high in a good way too. See you soon. Bye.